Hello, and welcome to Local Legacies, the show where we go behind the scenes with enterprising individuals who are striving for the best in their business, family, community, and themselves. I'm your host, Tim Lanza, and without further ado, here's this week's guest. All right, today in the studio, we have Jim Lattanzi of Hollis Hills Farm. I really appreciate you making the time to come out and see me. I know you're a busy dude.
Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Super excited to talk to you about some of those things.
I'm glad to be here.
So let's start off, I guess, a little bit of your history, where you're from. I know you're from the area, you and your wife as well. How did you go from where you started to where you're at now?
Yeah. So real quick, I'm Jim Lattanzi. My wife, Alice, and I own Hollis Hills Farm in Fitchburg. We bought the farm in March of 2014. So we're just about to start our 9th growing season. In fact, this will be our 9th sugaring season, which was we hit the ground with maple syrup. But I grew up in Lunenburg, all of a few miles away from where we are now. My wife, Allison, grew up in Shirley, so all local to central Massachusetts here. It's been quite a road to get to where we are. Really, really excited about the things that we have going on and the opportunities that have been, presented to us and opportunities that we've created. When we started farming, and that's really the whole, that's what we are. We're a farm. We're a farm that's got a lot going on, and it's fun. But the whole genesis of our operation is based in agriculture. I've had that passion forever. I mean, I remember being a little kid and my mom, I'd always say, "Mom, I want a horse. Mom, I want pigs. Mom, I want cows. Mom, I want." My mother always said to me, when you grow up and get your own place, you can have whatever you want. Well, here you go, Ma. I've had all of it. We've had horses and cows and pigs and chickens and ducks and turkeys and, you name it, sheep and goats. And we've raised all that livestock. As any business grows and changes, we've come a long way. Dialed a bunch of stuff in, we've tried things and changed and let things go that didn't work. And then, found things that did and tried to really grow with them. The other big part about me and my wife and kids and where we are is that we've got a killer team. Like I say it all day long, like everything we've got going on at the farm is way bigger than I am. It's a culmination of who I am. My passion in agriculture, my love for the hustle of business and relationships and working. But we can't do it without the people that work with us. And I always say that they don't work for us, they work with us. My wife and I are both involved in the business. She's still a nurse at the hospital. This is us. But we've got from management to marketing to the girls that help tend bar to the guys in the kitchen to the kids that park cars to the kids that scoop ice cream to mechanics to truck drivers to tractor operators to my orchard manager, the guys that we've got a killer team and we've got a big team. In season we're pushing 90 plus employees. It's awesome. Considering being first generation farmers, starting with an egg root when I was 10. I had, 33 barred rock laying hens, and I hustled eggs on my bicycle. And my mother still has the ledger that, kept all the records of who I sold them to, who, I got $1 a dozen delivered, Mrs. Gale took 2 dozen every week. So, and I'd ride my bike around the corner and deliver and get my $2. It's been, where we are now is literally this culmination of all the different jobs and businesses and experiences that I've had growing up and hustling, and it's awesome.
So, as far as businesses go, like you mentioned your team, it's like farming and agriculture has got to be like at the pinnacle of labor-intensive businesses. So you've got to have all these, especially with not just the farming itself, but with all the different things you're doing, you got to have that solid team of people supporting.
We really do. We've got a killer management team, and awesome employees. Our retention is like 100%. Unless somebody dies, which hasn't happened, but they either graduate from college, they move away. Like that's the only time we lose employees, and that speaks to the quality of people that come forward. We've got a great community full of good people. to the fact that, hopefully I pride myself on that we have a good working environment for employees. It's a fun place. It's a safe place. It's a happy place. They work. People, don't get me wrong. People come to the farm and there's a lot going on. It's fast moving. It's fast paced. We're do our best to provide a good experience for the customers, but we've got this great group, and honestly, I look at all of them like family, because they're helping me live out my dream. And in the meantime, we're providing this killer space.
Right. Yeah. Symbiotic relationship. It's kind of exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
No. I don't know if all of our listeners here know exactly what we've got going on, but the farm itself was originally 100 acres. We've since purchased the farm next door, another 34 acres. We've got this 135 acre piece of property right in the heart of Fitchburg. I think I have 80 plus direct abutting land neighbors. Like I have 80 neighbors that touch our farm.
Wow.
It's crazy. But we do everything from maple syrup that's about to start here to all the you pick berries, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries. We have peaches, we have apples, pumpkins, cut flowers, and then we have the whole food service side. So we've got ice cream. We have the full restaurant that is serving local AF food, craft beers, everything that we serve, on tap is brewed or crafted in Massachusetts, whether it's Carlson's, hard cider that's made in Leominster, with apples that come from all the farms locally, including our own, to a lot of Wachusett stuff, to Stone Cow beers, to Newburyport. We've got this great selection because Massachusetts is like a mecca for, craft and local. And so we were able to put this on draft, couple it with, our own burgers. The cow that's on the fields ends up on the menu. Don't tell everybody, the little kids that, but it's like, it's so freaking cool that we're able to put all this stuff together and serve it with good entertainment.
Now, going back to the egg route, what's the path to this multi-dimensional agricultural or farming business?
Well, so I had the chickens for a couple of years, did my egg business. I think I was 14. I was riding my bicycle over to Cherry Hill. I scooped ice cream. It was like my first paying job. I was where I got a paycheck and I got tipped. So kind of cool. We sell ice cream. Also local Massachusetts produced ice cream. It's from Maple Valley out in Hadley. Like great dudes. They milk nice cows, and they have really good ice cream. It's high butterfat content. Like it's rich. And we serve a lot of it. So I'm stoked to have an opportunity to sell local product. It's a great relationship for those guys because, hey, we're a great outlet for them because we serve a lot of ice cream. But so that's again, as we go forward talking about different jobs, but I worked for my brother-in-law, as a kid, rode my bike down. I would grease trucks on Tuesdays and Thursdays for him. He owned an excavating business. So I learned, equipment and operating equipment and whatnot, working for him and honestly learned a lot about, having some drive because I never knew a guy that would get up. He was in his office every morning at 5 or 5:30. He was organized as heck. You could hardly read his chicken scratch, which is similar to mine. But you go down, you show up for work at 7 o'clock. I'd usually be there about 7:03, coming in on two wheels. But, I'd show up for work and he'd have, here's your day. It's all laid out. This is what you got to do. So I learned some of I always admired how hard he worked and successful he was in business. And he's a great family guy. And so it's always been like an inspiration to me because I didn't actually come from a family of entrepreneurs and business owners. My mom was a school teacher and then a homemaker. My father was an HR manager for a big outfit. And, everybody else sibling wise has all had careers, within companies or, the brother in the Coast Guard, so this whole, hustling and, creating your own destiny isn't necessarily where I came from, other than watching my brother-in-law who worked like this. Going forwards, my experience in equipment and trucks and, getting my hands dirty with him, I used to go up and help at the dairy farm, and we'll talk about that too, Cherry Hill, Lunenburg. It's kind of like it was my home farm growing up. I didn't have a farm, of course. I just, I lived near there and would hustle over. But I worked with my brother-in-law. I went to Assumption in Worcester after I graduated from Lunenburg in '02. Where I ended up, I have a degree in education. But while I was in college is when I started my first real business. My parents, I'm the youngest of five. And so my parents would go away for the summer. We used to go to Maine. I'd go with them. But then once I had a real job working for my brother-in-law, I'd hang home. So as soon as school was out, they were like, whoosh, they're headed off to the lake. And I had a big backyard and somewhat minimal supervision. And so we would throw these like killer parties at my parents' house. They're like huge, And so it was a lot of fun. I realized that I liked, like hanging out and throwing big parties, which could be, told into more networking and relationship building if you want to analyze it that way, or we just had killer, keg parties. But we would roast a pig. I had a buddy of mine from Ayer. His family owned a hardware store, and they had rental pig roasters, and we'd bring a pig roaster to the house, and we would cook a pig for this big ass party every year. Did that like 2 or 3 seasons, and then the neighbors next door called and said, "Hey, can you do this for a graduation party?" And I was like, I thought they were the ones calling the cops, but apparently not, because they wanted me to do a party for them, and it kind of took off. We were doing barbecues. It was Cowboy Jim's barbecue. The other portion of that is that we had a little bit of a hayfield that in my parents' front yard. It was like a budding and a bigger piece of property. And this summer when I was 19, I fenced in the front yard and I bought a cow out of the New Hampshire Ag Bulletin. And we named him Arby. And it was my first beef cow. And I don't really know how I got into it, but I did. And all of my buddies were calling me Cowboy Jim with an expletive in front of it, And so it was the summer that, we put this Cowboy Jim's barbecue together. Fast forward, I graduated I ran this through college, catering on the weekends. I was driving a truck for Moore's Lumber and Air. And I grew the catering business. My last full season was the summer of '08. I did 56 pig roasts. Wow. In one summer. And I built a food truck and was running that either on the lakefront down by on the rocks, or I also had it set up for lunch over in Ayer off the Rotary by Jarvis Ford. And so I was into like the food business and catering and parties and whatnot. And it was a lot of fun. But I didn't like it as much as I liked farming. And so I ended up, I found myself where I would get the kitchen all set up, or I'd get the food truck all set up, and then I knew we had a good stretch of weather, so I would run back up to Cherry Hill Farm, the dairy in Lunenburg, find my ass on the seat of an old tractor, and I would mow hay, kick out the hay to dry it, rake it. I'd ride on the wagon to stack the bales, like anything I could do to be around farming equipment. I'd go in and help with the milk testing. Once a month they go in, they test all the cows, and I'd write down, all the samples and put them in the bottles and send them all off for them. And anything I could do to help, A, a local farmer, and B, get my hands in the dirt. And so if it was corn season, I'd chop corn if I could run the tractor, or I'd drive a truck, or anything I could do to be around farming. And so it kind of came to this point where it was like, why am I running my food business, paying other people to do it when I would rather be on a tractor? And so it kind of started that I had like this opportunity to, I picked up some land to rent to make my own hay. And I said, you know what, forget it. I ended up, phasing out. I sold the catering business to a guy locally who tried to make a run and keep going. I sold the food truck off. And I started buying farming equipment and renting more land, and off we kind of went. So it's been this other businesses that have and experiences that I've had that are still in where we're at today. I mean, right now I still make 150 acres of hay. That was kind of my first foray into agriculture. This would have been almost 15 years ago. Maybe even longer than that at this point. But, it's still part of what we're doing. And all of these experiences have come along and is now incorporated into what we're doing. I mean, the maple syrup that we're about to start, we're the biggest maple producer east of the Connecticut River in Massachusetts. Doesn't say a whole lot because there's not a lot of competition, but we do run about 4,000 taps. I mean, we'll process 100,000 gallons of sap a year. The numbers in to the backyard are staggering. If you go up north into Canada or up to Vermont and, northern Vermont, and there's guys that are running 50,000 taps. Well, they're way bigger than we are. But locally, we make a lot of syrup. That's something I did when I was a kid with my dad. We had like 4 maple trees on the property. We'd hang a tap and a milk jug, and we'd boil it on the wood stove and then finish it off on the kitchen stove. And it was sugaring season, something I enjoyed. And ultimately, there was an opportunity, it was probably 2010 or so, where I bought out. I started using some old taps that were laying in the woods, a bunch of maple trees with the tubing. There was an old sugar house in Lunenburg that had run forever and ever. They retired. Well, I bought all their equipment, and I took over all the trees, and I put all new tubing up around town, and I kind of ran that maple business. And ultimately, that has still been a core business for us at our farm now. We grew it, tapped a lot more trees, increased our production, found new markets, and it's been a draw for now going on into our 9th season. So all these different things that I've done or have experienced are still on the table at the farm. Yeah, it's been cool.
And it's like as you're going along, you're building in this, I want to work on this or I want to try this, but you're never losing really on the back end the skills that you've already learned, which is nice.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, farming, you get to do a lot of different things. It's not like I show up for my day job and if I'm an accountant, I run numbers all day. I mean, I have to do accounting, I have to do mechanic work, I have to do truck driving work, I have to manage crops, I have to manage livestock, I have to manage people. I have to manage money. I have to manage, what our next opportunity is. I have all these different things that are going on at the same time. So if I had experience driving truck as a kid, it's helped me because I still get to do that, and it's still part of my job. And if I ran a front end loader for my brother-in-law, well then, I now have my own. So I run equipment around the farm as we're working on making compost, or we're working on, fixing fields and regrading things. And a lot of the different things that we do now is all stuff that I gained experience when I was working for somebody else, or, helping a neighbor, or however it was that I take these experiences and move forwards. Just funny, one of the things I was thinking about is that I've been very fortunate that I've had a lot of different local kids work for me. Typically a lot of high school kids, whether they were working stacking hay or collecting eggs or getting ready for farmers markets or all these different things that we've done. And I always told the guys or the kids that work for me that, I could pay them what I could pay them. And I've always paid fair. The expectation is to work, of course, but I tell everyone I pay them in XPs. And they always kind of look at me. I'm like, I'm paying you in experience points. The things that you're going to do working with me at the farm, you will never forget them. And honestly, I run into guys now 10 years later that used to stack hay for me in the summertime, or, remember loading stubborn pigs onto a trailer trying to get off to make an appointment at the processor. Things that stuff I've forgotten about, but sure as heck, they don't forget them. They won't forget them because it's like experiences that you don't get somewhere else. Being on a farm teaches you shit that you never knew before and you wouldn't learn anywhere else. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed those relationships and those friendships with guys and girls that have worked with us at the farm, and now running into them, years later. And like, remember when that happened? Remember when the pin fell out of the wagon and we rolled all the way down the hill and crashed into the woods? I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or, different things that just stuff that you'll never forget. You'll never work so hard as when you're stacking hay and it's 95 degrees in July and the baler isn't stopping because I got to get it done. So we're going to keep going, and you're dying back there, but you keep working because there isn't a choice. And guys don't forget that, or girls too. It's not just guys, but it's, I like teaching and paying in XPs.
Well, and for you, that's every day. But if you get someone who comes work for you for a season or something, that's like all those memories that'll be like you said, like nothing else that they'll ever do. If they go into work, say a corporate job or something like that,
Yeah.
it just stands out so much. But then they come back to you, you get to like, oh yeah, that summer when the blah, blah, blah,
Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, I remember I got a call from a recruiter, maybe, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And the guy says, "Did you ever have a guy named Tony, so-and-so work for you?" I'm like, Big Tony. I forgot about him. I love that kid. And he was applying. He was an EMT in Boston. He was applying for a new position in a different city. And, they were calling to do, the research on him. And I'm like, one of my pet peeves is if you use me as a reference and don't give me a heads up, I'll usually tell a dirty story about you or something that I'll give you a great referral. And then at the end, I'll give them some tidbit. And so, I'm like, they asked a whole bunch of questions about Tony. It's been almost, 8 years, 10 years since Tony worked for me, but somehow I'm still on his list. So anyhow, I'm going through all the questions like, was he late for work? No, Tony was a good worker. Like, did he try and get out of work early and go home, or was he willing to cross the finish line? I'm like, no, that kid, he worked his ass off. It didn't matter what we had going. Like, he didn't care. You could say shovel shit from here to the other end of the world, and Tony kept going. Great attitude. Always had fun with him, and anyhow. So I said, absolutely, I'd hire the kid back, but I'm assuming he doesn't want to shovel shit anymore. So I said to him, to the recruiter, I said, make sure you write down in his file that he needs to expose all of his tattoos, for this job interview. Because Tony's got a one that it's highly inappropriate, and fortunately it's quite, it's not visible. But I got a call about a week later from Tony. I hadn't heard from him in years. And he's cracking up. He's like, dude, what did you tell them? And I'm laughing. I'm like, oh no, I don't know. I gave you a great review, but you might have to show your new bosses some of your inappropriate tattoos. And he was dying.
That's awesome.
So it's just, I've loved the opportunity to work with these guys and kids. Obviously most of the time they're always younger than I am, but giving them experiences that they'll never forget, and hopefully it gives them a good drive. We can talk about that too. I got another one that another one of my favorites. A lot of people know Jake Tebow, that just had the horrific hockey accident. Jake's one of my favorite kids. He came to me when he was 13, running cross country in Fitchburg. And the kid wasn't like 4 foot nothing. Lucky if he had 100 pounds. And I'd known him when, maybe 10 years ago when he was a young, real little kid. And he reintroduced himself and, Mr. Lattanzi, I like a job someday. And I'm looking at this poor kid. I'm like, oh God, you need like 5 inches, 50 pounds, like, you come see me in a couple of years. And a year later he came back and he's like, I'm really interested in a job. And I'm like, all right, you're not much bigger than you were last year, but I'll give you a shot, Squirt, and the kid impressed me to like no end. I mean, he worked so freaking hard, and it's funny, he go off to school, at the end of the season, you see him next spring, you come back, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden, holy shit, little Jake. We always called him little Jake. Little Jake's not so little anymore. Like, he put on some weight, he's growing, he's working out. And I always knew he was into hockey, but he didn't really talk about hockey all that much. I knew he'd have practice in the morning before he'd come to work, or he'd have a training session after work. And it's like, I'm thinking about it, like, wait a minute, he had hockey this morning. He worked from 7 to 5. Said he had to screw because he had a game at 6, and then he come to find out he was working out after the game at 10 o'clock at night. Like, this kid's driven. So, always impressed me. Really one of my favorite kids. And then of course, sadly to see, the tough road that he's had to hoe this year. But holy shit, like that, if there's anybody that's going to overcome what he's up against, like, I can see the drive. I've seen it, as many people have that have been around him. But he's been a standout of all of the employees, and I stay in touch with him, and he's kicking ass. He's working really, really hard. It's a different challenge he's facing right now, but he's working hard.
And I feel like that's come full circle because you guys have gotten out there and tried to help him as well. actually really a lot of different stuff that you guys do for the community. Where does that come from, or why is that such a focus of your business when you've got so much other stuff going on?
I don't know. I mean, I have like a huge appreciation for where we're at. I kind of feel like, all right, my job is I'm a farmer. But we mean, and again, this is all the stuff that's way bigger than I am. We mean so much more to our community and our families than necessarily A, we recognize, and B, I don't think we recognize it. It's just, there isn't a B. It's just, I know that we've got this big, awesome place, and it's our job to share it, and it's our job to be involved, and it's our job to give back. And if, if I'm doing well, which we work really hard, but we found a level of success, and we're always striving to push. If I'm doing well, like I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven by, shiny things. It's not who I am. I'm driven by helping people. I like to give people opportunities to better themselves. I like to see growth in the guys that I work with and the girls that I work with. It's like there's a lot of people that work with us, and this is part of our employee retention and those numbers is that we care about the people that work with us, and I care about the people that are around us. And when I see somebody that hits has either a tragic accident or something happen. I mean, we had the farm that I grew up at, Cherry Hill there, a couple of years ago, they had a silo go down.
The first time I ever went to Hollis Hills. I had just moved back to Leominster, and I was at that event.
Fundraiser.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, when I saw somebody that just, went from 100 down to 0 real fast, the farmers there, I said, listen, we got to do something. We have a place to do it. Obviously, this is something that's passionate for me. Here's a chance. I can help to put the right people together to see what we can do to help, build it back. And we were fortunate enough to be able to do it. We did it in short order. We again put a great team together. It wasn't us. It was Lions Club. It was Farm Bureau folks. I mean, the farmers came out from all over the place, but so did the community. It was huge. And by the time we were done, I don't know what we raised. It was all of $80,000 in a day. I mean, it was like, wow. Great to raise money for them, but it was also really awesome to see the community come out and support. And you read the paper and you follow some of the social media stuff, and it's like, it'll get you down. Everybody's so negative. Everyone's got, they hate this, they're mad about this, their feelings are hurt about that. There's this like all this just kind of crap. And it's, I do my best to not pay any attention to it. And if I can make our community a better place, if I can influence things in the right direction, like that's my job. As much as, it is about supporting my family and all the families that rely on us for employment, which, is pretty, when you think about it, the influence that we have is pretty awesome. So I'm more about trying to lift up and create opportunities and build things out and make things better and give people a chance and help people if they're in need. So, it's not something that I can stop and do every day. It's funny, we get requests all the time. Can you donate to this fundraiser? Can you sponsor my kids' little league team? Can you, we need this one. And I personally have a very, very hard time saying no. But if we said yes to everything, we'd never make forward progress. It would because there's so many people in need. And so many organizations that are totally deserving, but if I see something that grabs me, then, I do my best to make that happen. Anyhow, community is something that is totally important to me. I'll say it here. We can talk about the tree farm. I've got a pretty cool idea because I'm kind of I grew up in Lunenburg, we're Fitchburg folks at this point. Still not born and raised. I haven't, I didn't go to Fitchburg High, so I don't know if I'm considered a Fitchburger yet. But growing up in Lunenburg, Lunenburg was a great community. It was a small community. It kind of felt like you knew everybody. And in the last year, my wife and I have actually bought 2 different farms in Lunenburg. And we're able to kind of straddle 2 communities. I mean, we live in Fitchburg. Our kids are at St. Bernard's. We're not going anywhere in Fitchburg, from Fitchburg, but we've had an opportunity to kind of set some roots down again over in Lunenburg. And I'm pretty excited about one of my ideas over for the tree farm in particular is a community-based event, something that I remember as a kid growing up. And I think we may have an opportunity to try to put this back together. Lots of hurdles to make it happen, but when we were little, they used to have the bonfire in Lunenburg. They truck in, tractor trail loads of pallets a mile high. Everybody'd stand around and they light this thing on fire, and it was like this great community event. The last one they had was just before they built the new Lunenburg High School out front. And this is going back now, 8 years. It's been something that I think the community has missed since they stopped doing it, and there's a desire to bring it back. I've got the perfect location for it. I want to put this together, see if we can bring that together. The other one that happened was the Lunenburg Lions Club did a community fair down at Stillman's. That kind of, I'm not sure exactly what the end of it was, but it hasn't happened for a couple of years. I think it would be killer to try to couple that together with this bonfire thing. I mean, we've got a 110-acre farm in the middle of Lunenburg with 25 million gallons of water capacity for anything to do with a fire. We've got irrigation pumps. We've got great road access. We've got plenty of parking. We have like this killer location to try and turn something like that back on. So I'm totally pumped. I've started to reach out a little bit to Lions Club and put the bug in a few ears in town. And I think we're going to try and have this discussion. Whether we can put it together for 2022, awesome. If we can't, then we'll plan farther in the future. But it's something community oriented that I'm like, totally stoked to bring back, because it's some of those things. It's like, I remember that as a little kid, and this is, I'm 37 and I remember it probably from 30 years ago. It's a little different 30 years ago because, they'd have the fire. Instead of putting it out, they kind of let it burn down. There'd be a few cases of beer everywhere. Everyone kind of stand around, drink, and have a great time. That didn't happen forever, especially once, going fast forward into, 10 years ago that had stopped. But being that we're on private property and not on town property at the tree farm, we can probably throw up a beer garden. I think something like that would just be, it's one of those things I think everyone would have a great time, totally love it. And like I said, we've got the opportunity to use a perfect property for that. And again, it helps us straddle both communities because we live in Fitchburg, our business is in Fitchburg, but Lunenburg's still an awesome spot too. So,
yeah. Well, I think, just Fitchburg, Lunenburg, Leominster, like all of these towns that are in this area are very interconnected, whether it be like, different farms in different towns.
Absolutely.
And it's like we talked a little bit about this before, and like the reason you're here is, because it's a similar situation to some of the other guests. Obviously, it's like you work in this community, you've got a business, you live in this community. Why would you not try to do whatever you can to affect positive change?
Yeah.
And like seeing stuff on the news, like you said, and it gets you down in social media. And it's like you're looking at something that happened maybe in a different state or even a different country. You're getting upset about it. It's like there's opportunity. Walk outside your door and do something positive for someone that lives next to you or down the street or in a different town over.
Yeah. It's I watch the news, I read what I can. I try to stay up on what's going on globally, but I as Jim Lattanzi have no influence of what's going on in Ukraine right now. I have no influence what's going on in Syria right now. I have no influence what's going on, 2 states away. I can't. But what I can have an influence on is my own community. Like you said, I walk out my door, I interact with my neighbors. It's, whoever it is, it's like, it's, I wouldn't say it's my job, but it's my mentality is that, and I feel like, let's make this place let's make it a better world. I mean, I've got little kids. I want them to grow up in a place that is healthy and happy and a good community and good neighbors and good experiences. And so, it's not that hard to be a good human, but like just aim at that. Be a good human and you'll this whole world will be a better place. I saw one the other day. Again, I do follow a bit of social media, and it was on one of the community pages. And a guy came on and he starts posting. He says, does anybody know where I can find the town bylaw regarding floodlights and how many lumens you're allowed to have at your house? And I'm reading this thing and I'm like, what's this dude's issue? He goes on to complain about, he just moved to town not that long ago, but he's got a neighbor who's got a spotlight at his house, and it's blinding and it's absolutely obnoxious. And where can I find the bylaw that says, what about this lighting issue? And I read, and there were a couple people who were like, well, did you talk to your neighbor? And he's like, no, I just want to know where the law is. Like, what's wrong with people? Why can't they just follow the laws? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, hey, I hope this guy's not my neighbor, because, come knock on my door, dude. Like, there's an issue, like, work to fix it. Like, I'm not trying to be an asshole for a neighbor, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, is this where we're at? Like, you can't even talk to the guy that lives next door to you? Like, I understand, like, neighbors have feuds or something, but, like, you don't even have a feud yet. Like, there's a good way to start one is to call the local, building department to complain about something. It's like, when you could have just knocked on the door and said, hey, man, I'm the new neighbor. That light's kind of bright. Is there a way you can turn it down a little bit, or, maybe turn it off once the dog comes back in at night, or, like, I don't know. I'm just reading this. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, this is where we're at. Like, we gotta like get to know our neighbors again. It's funny, growing up, my mom and dad, like my mom in particular, we always had the neighborhood Christmas party. Like, we'd invite people over that we would see once a year. That was it. Just one time a year, they'd all come over and we'd bring, like, plates of cookies and stuff. And, my mom would make those little meatballs. And it was like, all right, my parents worked to keep up a relationship with the neighbors. We knew everybody in, like, 6 houses in each direction and a few around the corner and whatnot. And, like, it kind of stuck out. Like, it's your closest community. I mean, it's nice to have neighbors across the street that and look out for you. It's like, they drive by, your front door's open, and they drive by an hour later, the front door's still open. Well, it probably shouldn't be. So they call and say, hey, you all right? Your front door's open. Ah, shit, the wind blew it open. Or they stop and close it for you, like, because they know you. And I feel like I for the most part, I have that relationship with the neighbors at the farm now. Like, a new guy just moved in a month ago. I stopped up, hey, introduced myself. How are you? Welcome to the neighborhood. You need anything, let me know. Your snowbankings get too high, call me. I'll come up with a tractor and blow it open for you. Whatever I can do, like, stuff that I have, either whether it be equipment, relationships, you need a good plumber. I know a good plumber. Just stuff that I can do to network and help somebody out. It's no sweat off my back. And I love to have that relationship. And so, fortunately, we know most all the neighbors around the farm, at least the closest ones to us. And we're like, tend to be the go-to. There was an older gentleman up the road, a couple houses. He was having a hard time. I don't know if he had surgery or something, couldn't get in and out of his house that well. Well, I've got a carpenter that works with us at the farm. Brandon's this super talented kid. Guy across the street says, hey, can you go any chance you can help him put a new railing on? And, like, to them, to have a new railing installed is a big deal. To me, it's like, shit, I'll send Brandon up there. It took him an hour and a half, and they were so appreciative. And John, he called me. He's like, what can I buy you a case of beer? Like, I really appreciate it. I'm like, I don't need any beer. We, got plenty in the cooler. But, just if I can help somebody and it's something that's easy to me, I'm going to do it.
Well, that's the thing, is like seeing what do you have, you work, and like we talked about, developing all these skills with, relationships, networking, and building this up. And then you get to a point where, and by no means do I think that you're not going to continue trending in that direction, but you get to a point where up to a certain level and you look around and you're like, I got a lot here. What can I give to someone else? How can I take what's easy to me and make it easier for someone else? Yeah.
I just, we're comfortable, I don't have a need for anything. I don't, we're fortunate that, we're not flashy, fancy people. I don't need, new boots and, Gucci clothes or whatever the hell, is trendy. That's not me. I wear usually what somebody gives me for a sweatshirt and, the local hat that came with a piece of equipment I bought or something. But I mean, it's, our needs aren't that high ourselves. But if we can, we're comfortable, we're safe, we're healthy, we're fortunate. Like, share it, and I think, we've got a lot of resources. This is all part of that like mentality that's built this killer team of people that like to work. Because we're by nature working folks. Whether it's the farm side, whether it's the restaurant side. I mean, you work in a kitchen, like you'll never work so hard as when the line's out the door and then the food tickets keep printing. It's like, whoa, you've never seen 10 guys in the kitchen work so fast. I mean, but when we can turn out, however many meals in an evening, I mean, there's days, apple season, where they're turning 1,500 meals out the door in a matter of 6 or 7 hours. 300 meals an hour is like wild, especially it's, the way we do it. Everything's to order. It's not like you're doing the 300 meals of a buffet. It's 300 meals that are made individually with specialty sides and, mustard or no mustard, and out the door it goes. So, I mean, we've got a team of like people that work. And I have a true appreciation for that. I really, being one that has always worked and will always continue to work, it's awesome. Really lucky.
Now, how did the actual, I don't know if we've really talked about this yet, but how did you actually become to be the owners of Hollis Hill? Like, how did
that happen?
Yeah.
So, funny. We were living in Lunenburg in a rented house and piece of land, and I'd rented some farmland, a couple of hay fields and whatnot. And we were getting had our chickens and a few cows, and I started making hay and whatnot. Mr. Pierce from Pierce's Christmas Tree Farm came and knocked on the door at the house. I'd never met him before. It turns out I went to, and it was youngest daughter. I went to school with her. I wasn't home, but my wife was. And he said something like, I want to talk to your husband. I want to sell him my farm. And my wife was like, oh, okay, who are you? She didn't really know who he was. And so I called the guy back, and he said, we've never met before, but I've heard, I know a little bit about you, and I've heard you like to work, and it seems like you're hustling and you got a head on your shoulders. So I want you to come up to my farm. We'll talk, but I want to sell you my farm. I'm like, okay. I mean, I've been looking for a piece of land we could buy. I've tried a couple different things. I mean, it's hard buying land. I mean, especially where it's not like we had, family land or family money or, you name it. Like we started with, scratch. And I went up and saw Mr. Pierce, and we ended up working together for 2 years. Ultimately, he had the idea that we would sell the development rights to his farm. That sale of the development rights would essentially make the cost of the land affordable for my wife and I. We could build our house there, and he had a going business selling Christmas trees, and we could incorporate the livestock aspect that we were doing, and maybe we'll build a sugar house there or something. And it was killer opportunity, but we just couldn't cross the finish line. We spent 2 years. I learned a lot about Christmas trees. I learned a lot about business and land clearing, and we did a lot of work. But the number that he was looking for the development rights and what the state was asking wasn't enough. And so he didn't want to put my wife and I in a position where here you're late 20s and you owe $1 bazillion and you're upside down in debt, and you got to he didn't want to leverage us that hard. And he knew he had a baseline he needed to for his retirement and his kids and family too. He wouldn't sell the farm for less than this. Well, the deal fell apart. At the same time, I heard that the old Marshall farm was going up for sale. Now, I actually rented the kitchen at Marshall Farm when I had my catering business and did Cowboy Jim's Barbecue. That was my base of operation kitchen for my licensing, was rented at Marshall Farm. I knew the woman that was managing the place, and she got me in because I needed the license. And so I knew the property, and I'm like, that's Killer Farm. I mean, I'm from Lunenburg. Like, I lived in Lunenburg my whole life other than college, and I'm not leaving town. But I'm like, I'm going to go look at that one. And we went up, my wife and I. Actually, I ran up first. I'd heard this phone call. I was coming back from a farmer's market in Somerville Saturday afternoon, and I knew the owner because I'd rented from him before. And I called him. I said, Kenny. I said, I heard you want to sell the farm. He's like, I do. And I said, well, I'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I met him up at the farm, And I don't think it took 15 minutes. We had a handshake, and I had a purchase and sale signed 2 days later. I said, I'm doing this. We're in. I knew nothing about fruit, nothing about apples. And I was not a veggie grower. All of a sudden I'm walking to a place, hey, I got a walk-in freezer. This is awesome, because we were in the meat business. We were processing livestock or having it processed and selling it at farmers markets. I'm like, we can open a retail store. We can do this. We can do that. And it was, huge infrastructure. There are buildings, there's apartments, there's a little rental house that came with the property with this nice little old lady. She's still there, Gail, love her. But it had been closed for 5 years. And at that, it hadn't been run necessarily the way that I had in mind. I mean, my genesis is in passion is in agriculture. For a while, it had been kind of run more like a zoo. No offense, it's just a different style, different mentality than necessarily I had in mind. I really, I like regular farm animals, not camels. Again, cool camel that came with the farm. Ralphie now lives at the neighbor's place. I didn't know Bruce loved Ralphie, but that was a great home for him. It was really this place that was like, I knew right away it was going to be bigger than I was. I knew a lot of people. I had a lot going on. I had a lot of hustle, but this place is big. It's cool. There's going to be a lot of people that come through the doors here. There's going to be like memories made. Probably the most exciting part was that when we bought the farm, my wife was pregnant with our first. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is going to be a kick-ass place to grow up. Like, if I could raise kids, if we can raise our family here, like, what better? And we're doing it now. It's awesome.
That is awesome. And it is exactly that kick-ass place that you thought it was going to be when you bought it. Yeah. It really is. I mean, every time that I've been there, I've been absolutely blown away at what a venue it is, how excellent the service is, the live music you guys have, always great stuff going on.
I think one of the biggest things that I like about it is that it's like, obviously this is a killer place to raise my kids, which means it's a killer place to raise your kids. You bring your kids to our farm, and they're going to go home, and they're going to remember shit. They're going to remember they're either from apple picking or picking flowers. They're going to remember, that cheeseburger was delicious. They're going to remember Yellow the cat that they were petting him, and all of a sudden he turned around and he just like swatted at him and made him cry, little blood or something. It's like they remember things. These are the experiences. The feeding goats or going out and they go down to the pasture and they go see the cows, and all of a sudden a cow lifts its tail and like shit flies like no little kid has ever seen before. It's a cow pie and it's splattering everywhere. Or the thing pees like 2 gallons at once. Like, this is the stuff that like kids look at, even adults, that don't experience these things. This is the shit they remember. And it's like, my kids get to grow up in this. So more so than even just grow up on a farm, like growing up in a restaurant is also a killer place to grow up. Well, my kids get to grow up in a restaurant, a bar, a farm, an ice cream stand. Like, we go swimming in the pond out back. Like, it's like, we're so lucky, and to have this like kick-ass place in a city. Like, these are the things that you think about as like, oh, you live out in the country. No, we live in a freaking city. One of the 10 or 12 gateway cities in Massachusetts. Like, we're in a very industrialized, very residential, very populated area, and we get to show the community all these experiences that, like, you don't see that stuff. I remember giving a school tour. That's probably 3 or 4 years ago, and honestly, I'm not gonna remember which middle school the kids came from, but there was a whole couple bus loads of kids that had come to the farm from Fitchburg, never been to the farm, very, very, very much city kids, and they get off the bus and they're like, what is this place? I mean, they only rode like 1.5 miles to get there, but they'd never seen cows in person. They had never picked an apple off the tree. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is awesome. These kids are going to come back. Whether they come back now, they come back when they're dating their girlfriend in high school and they're looking to go do the fall apple picking thing. They're going to come back for ice cream. They're going to bring their kids back. and I'm positive. I mean, those kids aren't old enough to have kids at this point, but they'll be back because they're going to remember it. And it's offering experiences to people that don't necessarily grow up with it, and even the ones that did, that they're drawn back to a farm. They're drawn back to being outside, drawn back to sitting in the grass. I mean, a couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to redo that outdoor like front bar area, and it was late winter, and I brought home some big equipment. We were doing a project, and we literally bulldozed the whole front yard. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, there's a hill kind of far out beyond the stage, and it was this killer hill. But as a little kid, I remember rolling down the hill in the grass. But there were rocks, and it's like, this isn't a good hill to roll down because you just smash your head or you get hurt. I'm like, you know what? We're gonna change this. I literally bulldozed the whole front yard. We stripped all the topsoil off. We screened all of the rocks out of it, and we put it all back down in the front yard. Kind of like a big, like, I don't know what I was thinking when I undertook this project, but we stripped thousands of yards of material. We had excavators, rock trucks, bulldozers, but shaped it back with a couple different things. One, safer to play, less rocks to trip and fall and smack your noggin on. And also, the way the land rolls, if you're standing at the bar, you can see your kids anywhere on the front lawn. Doesn't matter where they are, you can see them. Now, given if there's too many people at a picnic table, you might not be able to see them. But if you're standing there and you have a line of sight everywhere, and the way it works, it's a 1 degree pitch off the front, then it drops to 2, drops to 3, and it goes to a 4 degree pitch before it levels back out. But at no point can you lose sight of your kids, even if they're 2 feet tall. And it was one of those things I was thinking about. I'm like, this is a safety issue, with a lot of people and kids are running around. But by design, I wanted a place that was safe to bring kids, comfortable to bring your family. And that's what we've got. Like, people come to the farm and they spend the whole afternoon. Heck, you can come early enough, you can spend the whole day. Because it's something to do all day. And especially with the music. Like, people enjoy the atmosphere. Like, it's awesome.
Now, with that being said, with everything that you've done so far, as extensive as it all has been, what's next? And where, like, what in your vision of the place, where do you see this going?
I mean, maybe a little more music. We'll diversify the food a little bit. I got some ideas. I want to build a bigger stage, better stage for music, so we can keep that rolling. I really like pizza. I like food, like pizza. I really want to build a big outdoor pizza oven, kind of another whole bar setup. I've got kind of this whole vision in my head that, we can handle more people, so cut our wait times down on lines so you can move faster, but also alleviate some stress in the kitchen by offering another level of food service somewhere there. I feel like we've got the right things now, the right combination, just to continue to perfect the menu, perfect the experience, make things more comfortable. Be nice if we had real bathrooms someday. We get the porta potties, they work, but I got a price on a bathroom building, and it was twice as much as I paid for my house. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this, So maybe someday, we got bathrooms in the store, if you want to hump up the stairs there. But there's always things that can be improved. We do a fair bit with the farm to table aspect now. I mean, one of my favorites are the drink specials, of course. So if we sell apple cider margaritas by like the 55-gallon drum. It's awesome. Isaac, our chef, we the pork on the menu, that's from our pigs. The hamburgers, that's from our cows. If he uses a lot of the berries and the fruits and the stuff into the menu. I'd like to do more in that aspect. They've got ideas that we want to add a greenhouse, probably up at the tree farm, but where we can start to do some more cultivation of other things in the menu. So we'll see. I mean, it's certainly, I feel like we've got the right mix right now, but that continued growth of community trying to do other events, that sort of stuff, and now adding in that other space that we have up at the tree farm, doing some stuff up there too. I mean, typically Christmas tree season is, 3 weeks long, and that's like the entire use of that farm is 3 weeks a year. We're currently like a 7-month farm. We do take the winters and kind of calm down for a minute, and close the doors, catch our breath, and reset the clock for next year and try and plan things out and improve and grow and take a break for a second while we get our heads back on. But I think that tree farm's got a lot of opportunity. So we'll see what happens up there for events. Part of this community thing, that theme we kind of hitting on, you wouldn't guess, but I ran track and cross country. For the last couple seasons, we've been the home course for both Lunenburg and Fitchburg for cross country. We host all the meets between the local schools, and then we host the district championship meet for Midwatch C. There's like 25 schools that come and run. So there's 25 schools. There's boys. There's girls. There's the JV team. There's like a bazillion kids that run at the farm. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to move a good portion of that over to the tree farm, because there's like roads everywhere. It's another great location, and give that experience of more ag, more space, but also alleviate some of the pressure on the farm at home when we have these huge meets show up, and it doesn't necessarily coincide with the other seasons that we have going on and the other things. So if we can kind of separate that and utilize that other property, I think that's a great chance to grow a little bit.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Now, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm sure obviously you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on. Yeah. I just want to say, dude, thank you so much for coming down here and talking to me. This was awesome. I've had a huge smile on my face the whole time. Like, you really, really impressed me. What you've done with your businesses, and what you've done for your community is really, really commendable. And I hope I can be involved and help in any way.
Well, listen, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share a little bit of my story. It's definitely, I could probably go for a few more hours, but we'll stick to this. You got the genesis of it.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in with us. We do this to share the stories of some of the incredible individuals in your community. All we ask in return is, if you found value from this episode, please share it with someone else who may also gain value from the show. Please feel free to rate or review the show. Your feedback helps us give you more of what you want. Until next time, I'm Tim Lanza, and this was another Local Legacy.